Rimôn Law is a law firm that is different from the traditional law firm. It is not exactly what one would call a virtual law firm, but has a lot of the benefits of what one now sees as the virtual law firm, which is that it doesn't have a lot of expensive long-term leases on real estate. It doesn't hire many junior attorneys, so it's really a firm composed of mostly very experienced partners that came from other, very large firms who have a lot more autonomy over their own practices. So each lawyer has complete autonomy, more or less, over his or her own client relationships, which allows for a lot more flexibility. It's very empowering for each individual attorney and makes for a situation that's much more user-friendly to clients. My role, I started out my career as a pure tax attorney, and then in the last 15 years or so, morphed myself into a general business and transactional attorney. So I do I'm sort of a two-headed attorney, if you will. I play two different roles. So when I bring in a client, I'm generally the general outside counsel for that attorney. I represent them in all of their U.S. legal matters and quarterback all of their different legal affairs. And we'll bring in experts in areas in which I don't have expertise to make sure that all their needs are taken care of. On the other side of the equation, I also serve as a resource for my fellow partners who are also corporate attorneys in a lot of cases. And so they will call upon my tax expertise, which I've maintained throughout the years, just as if I were still a pure tax attorney. And so I will be the tax partner on their matters. That's an interesting question. And ironically, the answer is simpler than you might normally think, because of the nature of Rimón and the nature of my role in my prior law firm, I really was already working more or less virtually with many of my partners. So before the real difference was that before the pandemic, we really only did mostly internal meetings through video conferencing, but most client work was done without the benefit of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and, all the video conferencing. And so if anything, it was a very easy transition to go to a firm that operated in a more virtual manner. One of the positives that's probably going to endure after the pandemic is all over is that, as I mentioned, most of my client interactions before the pandemic were by phone. And, especially since I work mostly with French clients, I really didn't get much chance to see them in person anyway, if ever. Occasionally I'd go over to France to meet with them in person, a lot of times after I'd already done work with them. But this period has gotten people used to doing these video conferences and using a lot of these sophisticated applications that allow you to do that easily without a lot of expensive equipment. Over your desktop or your laptop computer or even your mobile phone. And so now I think it's actually even better that you get to know people much better because you can put the face with the name and see people's actual expressions and body language much more so than in the days before the pandemic when you really only heard each other's voices. I'm very much looking forward to getting back to France. I used to go to France, at least twice a year on business trips, and those were always, my favorite parts of the year to go to, Paris and Lyon, and occasionally, another city if it made sense on that trip. And it's the first thing I'm going to schedule when it becomes safe to do a transatlantic flight again, and I'm vaccinated and we've got the herd immunity and life returns to at least some semblance of the new normal.